If you want to tell stories in a way that your audience will stay hooked the whole time and never forgets you, then this episode is for you because I'm showing you how to break down storytelling in an easy, simple framework that you can use, that you can repeat, so that when you tell it from stage, you crush it, which leads to referrals and renewals. That's what it's all about here on the Monetize Your Expertise Alive show. I'm Darrell Williams Jr., and if we're just meeting, speaking is what I do, and I can help you too. I'm talking to those who monetize your expertise, those of us who are course creators, we are workshop presenters, we are authors, right? We are keynote speakers, presenters, anybody who is an entrepreneur who sells your information, somebody who I call an expertpreneur. That's what I'm talking about, because there are times where you're going to be on a podcast stage or a virtual stage where you're going to be doing a keynote, a workshop presentation, and you're going to need to keep the audience's attention. And the greatest way to do that is through storytelling. And it's funny because a lot of people think, oh, storytelling, I'm good. I got this. Okay, we can make this happen. Okay, I'm good at telling stories. When in actuality, what I've noticed a lot of times is people think that they're effectively telling stories. And in actuality, you're just talking about something that nobody really cares about. But there are frameworks that you can use to tell stories in an effective way, so that not only do you hook and engage your audience, but you also teach them the point that you want them to understand, so that they get the information, they retain it, and they're transformed because of it. That's what it's all about. And that's what we're diving into today. What I'm going to show you is actually a talk that I did recently, and I'm going to break down what was going on in my head as I was telling this story. It's going to be super, super interesting, because you're going to get to see exactly what I was thinking in the moment and why I made certain moves, why I said certain things, what mistakes I made, which I know on the inside, but you may not recognize from the outside. But either way, I'm going to put it all out there and show you exactly what was going on. Okay. So with that being said, let me make sure that we are up and rolling. I am live. Yep. So we're live and we are ready to go. I'm checking the chat, and I would love for you to let me know who you are, see you tuning in. Let me know that you are watching. Again, I'm so glad that you're here, and we are ready to make this thing happen. I'm looking at the chat. Want to make sure that we got it. Cool. Cool. All right, here we go. So we are rock and rolling. We're going to dive into it. The way that we're going to do this tonight is I'm going to actually just dive into, like I said, a talk that I've been giving recently, a talk that I recently gave where I was on stage in front of a couple hundred people, and I was telling a story. Let me set this up though. Let me set this up. So this was an event where I was a featured speaker, but it wasn't my event. So I understood that I had a short window of time to kind of state my authority or kind of show my authority in the moment. And I was only given 20 minutes to speak. So because of that, I knew I had to quickly get into what I wanted to say, and I had to quickly make it make sense. So I started off with a story as my hook. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can hook when you are trying to get attention. You can start with like a staggering statistic. You can start with, a story like I'm doing here. You can start with something that really tugs on the heartstrings. The reason why I started with a story here is because most of the people in the audience knew who I was. So they were kind of rooting for me. You know what it's like when you are in church and maybe a kid gets up to sing, and they may not be the best singer, but you're just so glad that they're willing, and people are just celebrating. They're like, go ahead, baby, go ahead. You got this. You go ahead. You know what I'm saying? Because the kid gets up to sing, and you're really just celebrating their courage, but you're supporting them even if they didn't really have the greatest of voices. So I'm not saying that I'm a kid that didn't have a great voice. I'm saying because most of the people in the audience knew and were familiar with me, they were rooting for me to win. They were rooting for me to be successful. Like they wanted for me to do well. So I knew that initially the first thing that they were going to do was they were going to be excited for me, and they were going to be responsive. They were going to see what I was all about. So I knew that off the bat, I couldn't kill that energy, but I had to keep it up. So I said, let me start with a funny and engaging story that's really going to get them high energy and keep the energy where it is. So that's the background of why I chose storytelling to start this particular talk. But I'm also going to show you of a superpower move that most people don't incorporate, which is what we like to call a man, I forgot the name of it, but is when we circle back to the story I'll call back. We'll call back to the story at the end, and I'm going to show you exactly why that was so powerful. So check it out. This is me here on the screen, and this is the video of me. So you're going to see me talking through it here. Make sure, I think I want to have this just like that. All right, so I'm gonna go right here and I'm gonna go through this talk and tell you about the moves that I made and why I decided to go with this as I started with this storytelling. So we're gonna dive in and I'm gonna show you why I chose to go with this story and tell you every thought that was happening in my mind as I was going through this story. Here we go.
I'm Darrell Williams Jr., and I help people teach in a way that sticks so that you get better client results, which obviously leads to income and impact. Is that?
All right, so I started right away making sure that I told them who I was very quickly so that I wanted to get that out of the way so I can get right into what we wanted to talk about. I also wanted to make sure I kept the energy high, so I wanted to get them clapping and celebrating, making sure that they knew that they were involved as well.
All right? Absolutely. So, we're my experts in the room. If you identify with anything that's on the screen, my course creators, my keynote speakers, my authors, wave at me if you identify with any title.
Right? So I wanted to make sure that they found themselves and identified themselves in the room. Okay, let me make sure you can hear this sound. Okay, perfect. So I know that you can hear me. So let me go ahead. And here we go.
There on the screen. There we go. Those are my people, consultants. Absolutely. That's what I like to call an expertpreneur, or somebody who monetizes your expertise. All right, that's exactly what helped. But we're not talking about that guy right now. What we really need to dive into, what I really think most of us are really going to connect with, is not that version of Darrell, but it's actually middle school Darrell.
Come on, ads. All right, it's okay. I'll rewind it in just a second.
No. It's not that version of Darrell.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to start with them. Again, I know that they know who I am, so I didn't want to give too much time on the introduction, but I wanted to just kind of state who I was for those who didn't know me and state what I do for those who might be interested. But I quickly wanted to get into it. You see, we're just like 13 seconds into what it is that we're 13 seconds into the talk. And I said, while I have their attention, I want to spike it with a story. Again, I know that right now people are wondering, okay, what is he going to do? What's he going to talk about? Is this somebody who I'm going to listen to? Am I going to pay attention? Am I going to tune out? This is where you answer all those questions right there at the beginning. And watch how I started this off.
It's not that version of Darrell, but it's actually middle school Darrell. No. It's not an all moment.
All right, so check this out. That was on purpose. There's something about timing, and that's the first point that I want you to pull out. That timing was intentional. I put that picture on the screen knowing that the picture was going to jar some sort of reaction. With you have over 100 people in the room, somebody's going to make some sort of reaction. And I needed people to know that I'm going to be interacting with the crowd, that it's okay for you to react. One of the things that people underestimate is that when you are a speaker that they are not familiar to hearing, maybe it's your first time presenting to this audience, maybe you're giving the keynote presentation or something of that nature, you got to let the audience know how to behave during your presentation, your workshop, whatever it is. For the sake of this video, let's just keep saying presentation. So as you're presenting, you've got to let them know how they should interact with you and how they should behave. And you train their behaviors based on how you first start. So I started here intentionally pausing and waiting because I knew somebody was going to respond. And I knew that I can highlight that one response and let everybody know it's okay to talk back to me. Does that make sense? I'm going to rewind really quickly and I want you to see that pause was super intentional. I was waiting for somebody to say something so I can respond to it. Watch this.
It's not that version of Darrell, but it's actually middle school Darrell.
Hey, middle school Darrell.
No. It's not an all moment.
Right? I was waiting for somebody. So she said, oh, the beautiful thing about this is if I had to put this on levels, I would say that this is probably like a level 2. Like this is not super easy as a level 1. It is actually a little anxiety inducing for somebody who is not familiar with crowd work. And I'm not a comedian by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not super great with crowd work. No, that's not true. I am really good with crowd work, but I'm not like a comedian level. I think that's like a level 3. But this tactic is a level 2 tactic where I'm saying, listen, I know that somebody's going to say something. I don't know what they're going to say. They might have said, "aw," they might have said "ill," they might have chuckled, they might have said, "get off the stage." Like, you never know what they're going to say when you just open it up and allow for crowd interaction. But I'm listening and in the moment acting on the response that I heard. So because I heard somebody say "aw," my response was, "It's not an aw moment," right? And again, that let people lighten up. It led to a little bit of laughter. It loosened up. I'm training the audience to know, listen, it's okay. We're gonna have some fun. You can talk to me. I'm gonna talk back to you. We're gonna have some fun with it. All right. So we're like 9 seconds in. But do you see the intentionality there? Again, it's timing. I'm gonna call this out a couple of times. It's timing. I intentionally paused, waited, because somebody's gonna fill that gap. Somebody's gonna fill that space. And when they filled it, I knew that now's when I'm gonna respond and let the audience know this is how we're gonna flow. Watch how this comes back over and over again throughout the theme of this story. Not just what I'm saying, but watch how I'm interacting with them to let them know it's okay to speak back to me. All right, check it out.
It's not that's what exactly, right?
See,
it's funny. I
interacting.
was looking at Marcus put up baby Marcus yesterday, and I was like, all right, okay, all right, here we go. But middle school.
Okay, so let me pause right there. So that was a callback to someone who spoke the day before. It was actually his event. He spoke the day before, and he had a picture just like that of his younger self. I didn't know he was gonna do that. He didn't know I was gonna do this. And it's I put this in there for 2 reasons. One, I wanted to call back to a prior event for them to say, "Oh yeah, Marcus did have that yesterday." But 2, I thought it would get a chuckle. It got no chuckles. It got none. It was just dead silent. So I'm gonna go back so you can hear it. So I just quickly got out of there because I was like, okay, I don't even know what I said, but I thought that people were gonna chuckle with it or they were gonna laugh, and they did not. Sometimes you put a joke out there and it doesn't land. Somebody who was inexperienced will get nervous and they'll throw them off. Somebody experienced just says, okay, that one didn't land. Let me move on to the next point. And that's what I did because I was like, okay, I thought that was gonna have a bigger reaction. It didn't. Let me just move on. Okay, check this out. So I'm gonna go back really quickly.
Yesterday, and I was like, all right, okay, all right, here we go.
Nobody said anything at all. I was like, okay, let me get out of there. Let me get out of there.
But middle school, Daryl, I grew up in Staten Island, New York, and I can remember being a middle schooler. I was 11 years old, and I was like, I started getting that feeling, you know? I was like, dang, I need a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, I need to date somebody. I got needs, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, I gotta figure this thing out. So
now, again, you see the timing there. Because this is just the start of the keynote, they're wondering, what is he gonna talk about? What is he saying right now? One of the things I learned from studying comedians over the years as a presenter is the power of the unexpected. So the way I set this joke up, and it's funny because I feel like I'm speaking as if I'm a comedian. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination am I a comedian. But again, I followed and watched a lot of comedians to see about their timing, to see how do they keep people engaged, how do they make people laugh. And one of the things I noticed is that when something is unexpected, that's what triggers a lot of laughs. Okay, so the way I set this up by framing the situation, I was saying, okay, I'm 11 years old, I'm in middle school, and I started getting that feeling. The question in everybody's mind at this point is, what feeling are you talking about? What feeling do you have as an 11-year-old? What is it that you're talking about? So then I took a beat, I paused, intentionally letting them sit in that curiosity, and then interjected, I need to date somebody. Because now everybody sees that feeling I'm talking about is, that feeling. That's the feeling you're talking about. You see? And again, I came with, it's all about the timing. I'm going to replay it one more time. And then watch this as well. Once I got them on the hook laughing, once they started laughing at the fact that I said I needed a girlfriend, right? Then I doubled down and with, I've got needs. Because that is just a little bit more risky, a little bit edgier, a little bit more expected, which is going to make it a little bit funnier. The fact that they're already laughing is going to make it seem even more funny than it was. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you kind of double up on engagement, because you've already got them laughing. It's kind of like if somebody's running down a hill, if somebody's running downhill and you push them in the back, they're going to go faster, sometimes even fall over and roll down and things like that, right? Because momentum is just going to make it go even further. You don't have to push them super hard, but if somebody's running down the hill and you gently push them in the back, they'll probably fall forward and tumble and roll because the momentum is going to carry them. The same thing happens when you kind of layer jokes on top of each other. So the fact that the first joke was moderately funny, because they were already laughing, when I hit them with that second layer, I've got needs, that makes it feel even more funny. Since they're already laughing, they're going to laugh even harder. And that makes that joke really land really strong. So I'm going to go back and watch how it all unfolds just one more time.
I mean, like, I was like, dang, I need a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like, I need to date somebody. I got needs. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I got to figure this thing out. So.
Okay, let's move on.
When I started looking at where I was in 6th grade, I was born in 92. I wasn't really attracted to like those that were my age. I was always into people that were a little older than me, girls a little older than me. Having like 80s, 90s babies in the house, 80s, 90s. Here we go. All right, I was like more 80s, 60s, 70s. Any 60s, 70s people? Okay, all right, come on. There you go. Yeah, y'all could have been my parents. So.
Again, this was on purpose, of course, 100%. The only reason why I put that 90s thing in there was because, remember how I started? I did not initially start with a bio. I didn't tell people, I'm Darrell Williams Jr., this is who I am, I have a wife and 2 kids. I had 20 minutes, all right? It wasn't time for that. So what I do is sprinkle and interject information about me that is relevant, that will get people interested. People are always interested in your personal life, your family life. By sprinkling in that I was born in 92, people know, oh, he's 30s, low 30s. Oh, he's young or whatever. Okay. And then that joke of, 60s, 70s babies, you could have been my parents. That is poking at the age, of potentially some people in the room. People always laugh at me because I'm younger than people in the room and things like that. So it's just again, the whole goal is to make people feel comfortable, let their guard down, laugh a little bit, relax, and let them know, okay, this is how it's going to go. When you are giving the hook, what you are doing is training the behavior for the duration of the talk. So through this hook, I need them to know it is okay to laugh out loud. It is okay to yell things at me from your seat. I'm going to receive it. I'm going to give it back to you. It is okay for you to relax. Like I'm training all of these behaviors in just the first couple of moments. Is that making sense? Okay, so let's get it. So this is right after I said, man, y'all could have been my parents. I knew that was going to get a laugh. It did. And now I'm transitioning right into the next point. But be careful. Remember, like I said earlier, sometimes you plan to get a laugh and it doesn't happen. You've got to be strong enough to know that if I plan to get a laugh and it didn't happen, I still have to move on into the next thing. Don't let it deflate you, but now just quickly get on to the next thing and don't let it fluster you. All right, keep it going. So I was pretty confident from my experience that making an age joke here was going to get a laugh, but I was still prepared to go right into the next thing. And I've seen this happen so many times where people, oh my goodness, let me, I've seen this happen so many times where people thought they were going to get a laugh and they didn't, and they paused, and it was an awkward moment. They said something that they thought was going to be funny, and because it wasn't actually funny, it was now this awkward moment, and they were saying, okay, yeah, so anyway, and that makes my heart hurt. That makes me cringe. So if you pre-plan to tell a joke, and you are thinking this is going to land, this is going to be funny, also be prepared for it not to land, or also be prepared for you to mess up the timing, for you to mess up the punchline, and know exactly what you're saying next so that you can get right into it, right? You don't want to stand there looking silly and have that awkward moment because that makes it feel cringy to everybody in the audience. Be prepared to move on to the next thing, or even just laugh at yourself and keep it moving, okay? So check this out. Here we go. So this is... y'all could have been my parents. I knew it was going to get a laugh, but I was still ready to go into the next thing.
Y'all could have been my parents. So for me, I was like, I can't get with the 6th grader. Like the 6th grade girls are like, those are immature. I need a 7th or 8th grade girl, you know what I'm saying? But I knew that 7th, 8th grade girl, you can't just come with the same 6th grade energy. So I know a couple of years ago, there was a popular word like Riz, like how you kind of pick up girls, like spin game and things like that.
So I told you I'm going to tell you my power moves and my pitfalls, some mistakes that I made. Right here, nobody was responding when I used the word Riz. Nobody was. I should have abandoned it and should have moved on and should have said, okay, they're not getting there. I could have even made a joke on that, like, oh, y'all, that word's too old for y'all. Oh, y'all don't know that. Oh, man, y'all not cool. You don't know that word. But either way, I should have got out of there because based on the audience reaction, people were not with me when I used the word Riz. Maybe it is, maybe it's just not a word that is familiar to them, but in some other audiences, maybe if I was speaking to students, they would have recognized it. Again, it's 2025, not because this is a popular word. It's actually like, you're lame. You still say Riz? Like we haven't said that in a couple of years. Nobody uses that phrase anymore. But it again would have been engaging. I'm not trying to be the coolest guy in the world. I'm trying to engage, right? So when I noticed that it didn't get the reaction that I wanted, I should have abandoned it. The reason why I didn't is because I plan on using it again and again. That's the only reason why I didn't abandon it. I still should have though, because they didn't connect with it. So you'll see the use case that I'm using it for in just a moment, and you'll see why I wanted to keep it in there, but also I probably should abandon it because they didn't get the reaction that I thought it was going to get.
So I was like, I need to be a grizzly bear. You know what I'm saying? He's like, if I'm gonna get a 7th, 8th grade girl, you got to come with it. So all
right, so it was the grizzly bear thing, and I'm gonna actually bring it up a couple of times and throughout this, and I kind of hung a lot of punchlines on that grizzly bear, but it, as you just heard the laugh. It wasn't like ha ha ha, everybody gets it. They were like, okay, like that's cool. But I probably should have abandoned it and gone with something a little bit different. But no, nothing's gonna be perfect. No delivery is ever gonna be perfect. But I'm showing you the real. Like this is what was going through my mind at the moment.
As the plan, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. There was a 7th grade girl that I remember. Her name was Olivia. I was like, that's it. Let's get it. We were in the cafeteria.
So let me pause real quick, because that wasn't funny, but you heard some laughter in the background. Because again, so now as we're training behavior, because I came in from the beginning and had them laughing, now it's going to be easier to get a laugh throughout the rest of the presentation, because they've been trained that it's okay to laugh. They've been trained that I'm going to laugh at some of these things. You understand what I'm saying? So if you are the type of person that uses humor, use humor early and often. Like use it early because you want them to know, oh, this is going to be funny. Like, if you don't tell a joke if it's a 20-minute presentation and you don't tell a joke until 13 minutes in, it's probably going to land flat because they don't realize I'm supposed to laugh at you, right? I came out of the gates letting them know it's okay to laugh at me. I was born in 92. You could have been my parents. All these things like, oh, this is going to be this. Okay. This guy's funny. Okay. And that was there. So you heard that, like I said, that wasn't even that funny, but people are still chuckling along just because we're in a good mood now. We're laughing. Okay, this is supposed to be funny. I'm going to laugh. It's the same effect as when you go to a comedy show. And sometimes you go and the openers, the people who are headlining, or not headlining, but the people who are opening for the headliner, sometimes they're not as funny. Just being honest, sometimes it's not as funny. But because you're in the room, if somebody else next to you starts laughing, like you might chuckle or laugh along. It might be a joke that if you would have heard it outside of the comedy club, you wouldn't have laughed at all. But because you're in the comedy club, because other people around you laughing, because it's an atmosphere where you're supposed to laugh, you'll chuckle at things that you wouldn't even laugh at normally. Same thing here. When you build in the fact that, boom, with this, it is okay for you to laugh, then they're going to laugh more often and more consistently, right? So if you want them to laugh throughout, train that laughing behavior early on.
Y'all let me know if this is a good plan. We're in the cafeteria. 6th grades on one side, 7th grades on the other side. I have my idea. I got my boys, Timmy, Toby, Eddie. I was like, bro, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. Watch this.
All right. So I don't know if you can tell. Again, I told you I've been studying some comedians. I want you in the comment section to let me know where that was inspired from. But this whole thing was set up with that phrase. I hope you didn't miss it. I said, let me know if this was a good idea or a bad idea. Why? I'm letting you know that this is crowd interaction. Let me know if this was a good idea or a bad idea. This is now keying them in to think, okay, let me listen to what he's about to say because I'm going to evaluate. And again, we've already been training the behavior that it's okay for you to talk back to me. So if it is not a good idea, they're going to let me know, right? Which is what I want. I want that interaction. So now I'm telling them you're engaged in this, you're involved in this. You let me know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. Now I use my friends' names, Timmy, Toby, Eddie. Why? It's intentional. You're going to see that come up time and time again. Let me make this point right here. Sometimes when we're telling stories, we give too many unnecessary details. I believe that if you're going to give details, that they should have meaning. The reason why I gave my friends their names instead of just saying I'll sit with my friends is because I knew I was going to use their names again. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use them again at the end of the presentation. Again, I told you how I'm going to circle back at the end, but I'm going to use their names again at the end of the presentation. I already know that. I already prepared this, which means I'm seeding their names early. So when you hear their names again, your mind goes back to this moment. Sometimes we give unnecessary details and unnecessary information that it just overwhelms and just confuses the audience, and they're just like, in their brains, they don't know how to ask the question, why did you give me that information? They're just confused as to which storyline to follow. If I just randomly threw out the names Timmy, Toby, Eddie, and gave them no context or anything like that, it would just be a bunch of information that didn't make sense for the moment. So every detail needs to be given with intention. Okay, is there a reason why you're saying this? If not, you probably don't need it. But I needed to say these names. I'm actually going to say all three of these names 2 more times throughout this presentation. So check this out. The next thing that you're going to notice right when I click play is as I'm going through the scenes, I'm putting myself back in middle school Daryl's shoes. I've just transitioned to the point where I'm no longer reflecting and saying, so what I did was I did this. No, I'm living as if I'm in the moment. I'm talking to my friends as if they're standing there. What I'm doing is I'm putting the whole auditorium, everybody who's in there, all the attendees in my shoes and in a 6th grade cafeteria. We're living the experience. That's how you bring it to life. That's how you get them engaged, and that's how you make it memorable. I'm speaking in a first person in the moment, taking it back to 1999. Like this is where we are. And this is what it feels like. So listen to the verbiage and the language that I'm using to make us feel like we're living the experience.
I walked over to the 7th grade side of the room. I saw Olivia. She was sitting with all her friends. And I was like, hey. She was like, hey. And I was like, one of my friends likes you. And she started giggling. And she's like, which one? Watch this. She's like, which one? I was like, it's up to you to find out. And then turn around, you know what I'm saying?
Again, now the goal here is to make them feel like they're in the moment. We're acting out the parts. I'm acting out. This is what I did. This is who I am. Not only are you visualizing it because of my words, you're visualizing it because of my actions. I'm showing you how I interacted. I'm making her voice. I'm contorting my face. I'm acting it out. Right? I'm acting out all the parts, and that keeps people engaged. So let's keep it going.
And then walked back to my side of the room, sat down with my boys, Timmy, Toby, Eddie. I was sitting there.
There goes those names again.
And then, guess what she did?
If you love your peaceful place.
How does this video have so many ads? Like, oh my gosh.
The town goes a little nuts.
Here we go.
She started coming from across the room, just like I planned. I was like, yeah. So she walked across the room with her girls. I was sitting with my boys. They walked up to us. They was like, hi, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And we were sitting there. And then I was like, me. You know what I'm saying? What y'all think? Good idea, bad idea? Horrible is crazy. Horrible is crazy. Think, for a 6th grader, I'm 11. Can you like put yourself in that mindset? All right.
So real quick, I love that the videographer kind of got this pan. Do you see how everybody is tuned in, keyed in? Everybody doesn't have to be laughing. Everybody doesn't have to, ha, 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 this is the greatest experience. But everybody's looking up at the stage. Nobody was scrolling on their phone. Nobody was tapping things on a laptop. Not at this moment right here. Everybody's eyes were right there on me. We're talking about how to tell stories in a way that keep your audience hooked and make them remember you forever. They're remembering this moment. They are locked in right here, right now. And yes, there are some people laughing, and people are shouting things at me. People are calling out from their seats and things like that. That's what you want. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna say that's what you want. If you want to make sure that people are engaged, this is a great way to tell that people are engaged. This is what I want. I want to see that level of engagement. I want to hear people talking back to me. I want that. That's what I need, because that's what helps me to perform at my best when I have that level of interaction. Now, even if you don't want that level of interaction, you can still apply these principles to keep this level of engagement. You see what I'm saying? Here we go.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. I thought it was a pretty good strategy.
You see, people are really invested. Some people are on my side. Yeah, that was a good strategy. Some people are not on my side. No, that was horrible. You see what I'm saying? But watch the question that gets yelled out from the audience next, because timing is everything again. So intentionally, I left that cliffhanger right there. The cliffhanger is right there before I dive into it, because now there's a question on everybody's mind and somebody's actually about to shout it out, because I allowed for that behavior for you to interact with me from the crowd. So now they feel comfortable shouting things out at me. But listen to what somebody shouts out.
Did it work?
Did it work? 3 people just asked, did it work?
Over, and I was like, me. And
all right, took him back into the position where I left. Do you remember I did that? Me before? I took him right back to that position where I left the story, picked it back up at the same exact spot, and now we're gonna answer the question of did it work? The thought on everybody's mind is, how is this thing going to end? That's the level. Do you see the power of effective storytelling? Because now everybody's mind is just wondering, how is this thing going to end? And I need everybody to be wondering how this thing is going to end, because that is how I'm going to transition to my key point and my sticky statement that I need them to remember, that's going to set me up to be able to teach them for the rest of the presentation. I need them to have the question in their mind right now, how is this going to end? And that is exactly the question on everybody's mind, as you can tell by the fact that 3 people shouted out at me, and now I'm going to give them the solution. Watch this.
then she was like, ah. I was like, yeah. And all my boys were like, oh. I was like,
Acting it out again.
That's crazy. And I was like, you know what? I'm never doing this again. I'm not dating anybody. I'm not. Like, I was broken because I got rejected. And the crazy thing is, I thought I had the skill that I needed to have in order to get the results I wanted to get. Come on. But I didn't, obviously, because I was rejected. And there's a lot of us that are missing out on some things because we think we have the skills that we need to have, but we don't realize that we don't. It's actually called unconscious incompetence.
Let me pause right here, because I need you to see this. First of all, did you see the transition? Did you see how I transitioned from the story, the joke, into the point that I was trying to make as a result of telling that story? One of my mentors says that the transition is key. Even most accidents on the highway happen as a result of a bad transition. Did you see the smooth, seamless transition from middle school Daryl to how most of us are sitting in this place, not realizing that there's a skill that we don't have in order to get the results that we want? That was just a seamless transition. And you even heard some people say, ooh, like once I said it, because they were locked in, they were paying attention. Once I have their attention, then I can make my point. And I quickly transition right into what you see here on the screen, that level of the key teaching point that I'm trying to make, which is the fact that a lot of us are in unconscious incompetence territory. Now, what I can do is I can go into the reason why this graphic is on the screen, the reason why the graphic is so big, that how I decided to put the graphic like that, the words, the fonts that I chose to use, all of it is intentional. But right now we're just talking about storytelling. Maybe another time I'll break all of that down. But you see right now how I'm talking about the fact that we transition from that story right into my key point. Watch what happens next.
It's called unconscious incompetence. That means I have no idea that I don't know what I'm doing. I thought I was a grizzly bear. I thought, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I had no idea.
There goes the grizzly bear again. You see how, again, that's the second time. I plan on using it one more time, but that's the reason why I didn't abandon it earlier, because I knew I wanted to use it again. But because I got that reaction, I should have abandoned it. Nobody really knew what I was talking about. And again, it's evident right here when I used grizzly bear, nobody reacted to it. It wasn't a chuckle or anything like that. It's just, what are you even talking about? So that's on me. Should have abandoned it. But watch, here's what I want you to pay attention to. And I wonder if anybody noticed it. Look at the amount of cell phones that came out to take a picture of what was on the screen. The reason why is because of the way I set it up, all to culminate the climax of this point right here. Everybody's mind says, boom, this is important. And not only is it a great graphic, something good for us to see and understand. I'll put it like this. If they were randomly walking down the street and saw this on the side of a building, they probably wouldn't take a picture of it. But because I set it up with that context and gave them that sticky statement of, a lot of us think that we have the skills that we want to have in order to get the results that we want to get, but we don't. Because I set it up that way, now this registers in their mind as something that is uber important. And because it's right there on the screen and super important, Watch how many people are, or look at how many people are like, I gotta capture this information to remember this moment, to lock it in.
Idea that I didn't know what I was doing. And when we were talking about skill acquisition and mastery of skills, these are the 4 pillars of how you learn something. At first, we're unconsciously incompetent. Like, I don't know what I don't know.
I'm gonna transition now, but I wanted you to see how many. I wanted to see there'll be another wide shot. Okay, and you saw how many cameras were out, like trying to take pictures. Okay, watch how we wrap this thing up. Watch how it finishes. I told you I'm gonna come back to it at the end. This is called a callback. Because I set this up at the beginning, I actually completely abandoned it for the remainder of the talk. Except for at one moment I said, you're going to stop looking like middle school Daryl, and I'm going to show you how to acquire these skills. And it led to a chuckle and things like that. But watch how I ended the keynote. Here, I'm going to land the plane here. The way that I ended it was by circling back to the story that I opened it with. And that is super powerful because I knew, okay, here's how I would like to put it. And let me make it like this. Okay, here we go. Here's how I'm going to put it. When you're teaching somebody something new, the hardest thing for you to do is to create a brand new neural pathway. Imagine if you were looking for somewhere to live and you had 2 options. Either you can decide to move into a pre-existing structure, or you can break out your hard hat, your hammer, your nails, and you can build a shelter for you to live in. Which one is easier? All right. It's easier to move into a pre-existing structure. And the same thing can be said about the information when we're trying to get it to attach to our minds. When there are already pre-existing neural pathways that are relevant to the information that you are teaching, when you attach new information to existing information in their minds, to existing neural pathways, to a structure that is already built, it is easier for them to retain that information. When you're learning something brand new for the first time and you have nothing to associate it with in your mind, nothing to hold on to it with, when there's no current structure built, what the brain has to do is build a new place to house this information. And that takes longer. Not impossible, but that's going to take time and repetition, and time again, they're going to have to learn this information in order for them to be able to get it. But if you want them to be able to retain something quickly, what you do is you associate it with something that they are already familiar with, and that's easier for them to stick in their minds. Is that making sense? So the reason why I told the story again at the end is because I know that because I planted that seed earlier on, it was just 18 minutes ago in a 20-minute presentation. Because I planted the seed 18 minutes ago, I know that they have some familiarity with it. And when I circle back, they're going to remember the emotion, remember the feelings that they were feeling as I was telling that story. And now when I give them the culminating piece, it's going to feel exhilarating because they're going to be reminded again of all those emotions. It's going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. I was so invested, and they're going to put themselves back into the emotion that they were feeling the first time that they experienced that story. So now when I give them the height of it, the climax, the culminating piece of it, they are going to be reminded of those feelings and emotions, and they are going to feel like they were back in that place, and it's going to resonate with them so much more than it would have if I never told the story in the first place, or if I finished with a different story. Is that making sense? Now, this is not saying that this has to be done every time. I'm showing you that the reason why I used it this time is because, again, I knew I had 20 minutes. I knew that I didn't have a 90-minute presentation to be able to go through so many different stories. And what made sense for me was to keep the through line of one consistent story. Just keep that one story, show a beginning, show the pain that I went through, and then at the end, put it all together with, now that you've mastered the skill that I wanted you to master, here's what could happen as a result. Okay, so watch, let me show you how this feels. Okay, let me show you how this feels.
That's holding back. I know that you were.
I posted these 2 nearly identical videos, and guess which one performed better? It was actually this one. All because of this tool I wish I...
aware. I know that you didn't know. I know that you were unconsciously incompetent. Is it imperative for you to now build this bridge? But think about the people that you serve. How can you continue to serve with integrity if you don't know how to build that bridge from incompetence to competence? It's that confidence that breeds your confidence.
Okay, so now check this out. All right, so I told the story at the beginning. Now I'm going to show you how I ended the talk, and I'm ending with going back to that story, showing what I experienced and kind of bringing it to a culmination, if you would. And it is going to show the result of all the things that we've been talking about and what can happen as you put in practice things that we've just discussed. I love ending my keynotes in this way because it ends with encouragement. Not only am I showing you the problem, I'm showing you why it was a problem. I'm showing you what to do about the problem. I'm calling out the reason why you're probably not doing it. But then I'm giving you the step-by-step solution for what you need to do in order to do it successfully. But then at the end, I'm going to show you the desired outcome. Like, this is what happens when you do the thing well. Here's what happens when you are successfully overcoming that problem. And I'm going to show them exactly what could happen when they master the thing that I just taught them. And again, demonstrate in such a way that makes them feel like I can do this. That's the feeling that you want them to have. All right, so check out, you heard the story at the beginning. Watch how I come back to it at the end.
It's that confidence that says, now I can demand some more money. Now I can get paid on these bigger stages. It's that confidence that changed middle school Daryl. Once I started getting some confidence, I told you when I was in middle school, I was like, I'm never dating again. I'm not doing this ever again.
Remember, that is exactly where I ended the story the first time. I have to go back to that point because I have to put their minds back into where we started. Sorry, where we ended last time. And again, I picked that up from a lot of comedians. If I'm going to go off on a tangent, in this case, it was an 18-minute tangent when I taught a whole presentation, I need to remind you where we stopped off. It's like if you're watching a movie, you've seen it, you've done it before. Maybe you're watching Netflix or something like that, and something interrupts you, and you pause it, and then you go deal with the thing that interrupted you. When you come back, you press play. Sometimes you got to skip back a second just to remember, okay, hold on, what were they saying? You might have paused in mid-sentence, like, wait, what was the beginning of that sentence? Or what was the beginning of this scene? Sometimes you go back a couple frames to put yourself back in the mindset and remind you, okay, that's what happened. So I went right back into where I ended the story the first time. Remember when I said, I'm never dating again, I'm never going to do, like, I went back to that exact moment intentionally so I could show them, this is where we stopped, and let me pick it up from here.
That lasted for like 3 months, right? And then high school rolls around. I started experiencing those feelings again. But this time I started learning some things. I started trying some things differently. I realized I didn't try to have to be who I wasn't, just show up who I'm naturally. I learned how to communicate with girls. Like I learned how to do this thing, which is why when I stepped on the college campus, I stepped on with confidence. And I remember even before classes started, I saw this one young lady that caught my fancy. And I wanted to approach. And I was thinking, I thought back to middle school Daryl for a second. And I was like, dang, I wish I had Timmy, Toby, Eddie with me right now. We were running the play. But I was like, nah, I don't need them. Because
Timmy, Toby, Eddie.
Now I know the skill. So you know what I did? Real simple. I just walked over and I just introduced myself. And started a conversation, and we kept communicating, and we became friends. And fast forward 14 years, we've been married for 11, had 2 beautiful kids.
I told you earlier, listen, I didn't start with, hey, I'm Daryl Williams Jr., here's my biography, I've got a wife and 2 kids. No, because I was dripping information about myself throughout the talk. So I didn't need to start with the bio, but by the end, they knew all the personal information I wanted them to know about me to make them feel comfortable enough to know that they could learn from me. So they know I was born in 92. They know I'm married with 2 kids. They see them on the screen. They know I've been married to my wife for 11 years. So this is information that a lot of times would go into, I've heard so many times in the beginning of a presentation, someone's like, so a little bit about me before we get started. I'm a dog lover and I'm, you know what I'm saying? This kind of takes care of that because throughout the talk, they're learning information about you. The reason why people start with a bio is because you're giving them bits and pieces about your personal life that is allowing them that's allowing them to get comfortable with you and know that they can learn from you. So this is the same exact thing. It's just dripped over the course of the presentation. Okay. Yeah. I learned how to master the skill, and then that led me to get married, my wife and 2 kids. It would not have had that level of reaction. The reason why they had that reaction is because they're associating that with middle school Daryl. Middle school Daryl that got his heart broken. Middle school Daryl that didn't know how to communicate with girls. Middle school Daryl that was like, I'm never dating again. They were associating the middle school Daryl with what they see on the screen right now, and overwhelmed with emotion. They were just like, oh my gosh, yes. And the thought that they're seeing, remember, People don't care much about your story. People care about their story through your words. They're listening and hearing your story, but what they're experiencing is them walking in your shoes. So what they're seeing when they look at me on the stage right here, right now, is they're seeing somebody who struggled with something, who didn't know what they were doing, who was incompetent, and learned the skill of how to transition from incompetence to competence. And once they were able to do that, was living their happily ever after. And they're walking in their shoes, realizing there's some skills that I don't know. There's something I'm not comfortable with. There's something I don't know what I'm doing. But by implementing what Daryl just taught me, I too can live my happily ever after. They're thinking about them and their experiences. That's why they're celebrating. That's why they're happy, because they're saying, I can do this. And this is what can happen when I do. Not a wife and 2 kids, but just whatever successful outcome I want. The dream that I have in my heart. It's possible. The proof is right in front of me on the stage. It's possible. And that is the seed that I want them to leave with. I want them to know, more than anything I just told you, I need you to understand that if it is possible, you are capable. You can do this. Here are the steps to do. I just gave you the steps to do it. Here's what happens when you do it well. You can do it too, right? I always wanted them to leave feeling empowered and motivated and say, you know what? You're right. I can do this. Not only do I have the information, but now I also have the inspiration. Oh my goodness. Not only do I have the information, but I also have the inspiration. And that's what's going to lead to my transformation. Thank you. That's how we end. All right?
Look, the reason why I'm able to live my happily ever after was because I mastered the skill that I needed to have in order to get the result I wanted to get. And the only thing that stands in your way from doing that, living your happily ever after, is building that bridge. Because when you build that bridge, that's when you get to the success that's on the other side. When you build that bridge, that's when you see the predictable revenue. When you build that bridge, that's what leads to generational wealth. All the dreams that you have in your heart that God put inside of you are all possible and attainable when you build that bridge. I'm Daryl Williams Jr., that's my time.
All right, and there we go with an unsolicited standing ovation. Love it. You know, sometimes people will end with a standing ovation because they asked for, stand to your feet if you da-da-da-da-da-da. Nothing wrong with that. That's definitely a move that a lot of people make. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But you can see the power of storytelling and how it led to an unsolicited standing ovation, where it's just, I started with the story, kept them engaged. I ended with that same story showing them that this is what was possible for me. But don't worry about me. What I'm telling you is, it's possible for you. When you master the skill that I just taught you, when you implement this, when you try it, you can do this and you can experience the results that you've wanted. And when they leave feeling that way, organizers are, again, the people who bring you in are not just going to say, oh, thank you for that. That was great. No, that's when they say, when can we work together again? That's when they refer you to other people. That's when you get referred and referred and rebooked, right? And that is the case with this with this particular organization. I got a text message the next day that said, man, you crushed it. You killed it. That was amazing. Like, how can I support you? You know what I'm saying? All these great things about what future engagements would look like. Because when people have that level of experience, they don't want to just have a one and done. You know what I'm saying? They don't want it to just be, okay, that's it. Thank you for coming out. That was a great time. They want to experience it again. And one thing that I will say in this moment, if you are looking to continue to get paid through speaking, right? If you're saying like, I want to be a paid speaker and I want to, do all those things. One of the things that you've got to do is maximize on the emotion of this moment. So when they reach out to you or afterwards, when you step off stage and they say, that was amazing, that was great, you crushed it, there needs to be a next step for those that are highly interested. Whether, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, whether you have a B2B offer or a B2C offer. Let me break that down. A B2B offer, business to business, is saying to the organizers, thank you for bringing me in. Do you want to rebook me or do you want to refer me to somebody else? Granted, you don't say it just like that, and you don't say it just like that because that sounds impersonal. But you say something like, I loved impacting your organization. Are there more opportunities for us to continue to work together? How can I continue to support? Are there any other organizations looking for a similar impact that you have connections to? That's basically what I'm saying is, do you want to rebook me or do you want to refer me to somebody else? But coming off of that heightened experience, the stage in that moment, that's a great time for them to say, yeah, like, we definitely want to get something on the books going forward. Cool. Here's my calendar link. Let's chat this week about what upcoming events look like, right? You want to strike because they're experiencing the emotion right now. Somebody told me that 70% of a buying decision is made on emotion. 30% is based off of facts. So when they're in that emotion of this feels great, this is amazing, I don't want to lose this feeling, they're in a buying mode. Like right now they're saying, yeah, I want to, how can we do this again? The longer you wait, when the emotion fades, the moment passes, now they start looking at the facts. Maybe we could try somebody else. You know what I'm saying? But you want to strike kind of when the iron is hot. Again, if we're talking about building consistent revenue and bookings. And now that was the B2B offer. B2C offers, those are going to be, in my experience as an expertpreneur, those are going to be, depending on the program that you have, or depending on what you have for a B2C audience. The B2C is the business, you to the customer or the consumer. Depending on the offer that you have, it is not going to be as lucrative as the B2B, because sometimes your offer is going to be like products. Maybe you have a book, maybe you have t-shirt sales, or something like that. Or maybe you have a course that they can buy, or maybe you have a program they could join and things like that. Again, it just depends on how elaborate your B2C offering is. If you have a $10,000 coaching program, yeah, you might get 4, 5, 6 clients. You got $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. You know, yeah, I'm not talking to that type of person. That's somebody who has the whole thing built out. But I mean, somebody who's, you know, selling books or selling t-shirts or things like that. Yeah, it's always great to get a couple more sales and things like that in the moment when you step off stage. One of the things that I do, I feel like I'm rambling, but let me go ahead and end the plane, land the plane here. One of the things that I do that I have in my contract is whenever I'm speaking, that there should be that there should be a table for merchandise and books, so that when I step off the stage for 15 minutes at least, once I finish speaking, I'm gonna go sit at the table, and if people want to come by where they want to take pictures and they want to say, hey, they want to say, you know, that was amazing, thank you for inspiring me, they also have the opportunity to purchase my book. They also have the opportunity to get t-shirts. I haven't done t-shirts in a long time, to be honest, but when I was really deep in the education space, I was selling t-shirts right there afterwards and all those great things. And again, that's just kind of the B2C offer, the B2C offer. But one thing that I'll always say, and write this down, is never leave the ball in their court. Meaning, if they say, that was amazing, that was great, how can I book you? Let me reach out to you. Do you have a card? Honestly, I don't even carry around cards. I probably should, but what I say is I've noticed that the fastest way to get to the results you want is actually for me to have your information and my team to reach out. Because it's true. It just is. When I give a card, never know if they're going to call, right? But if I'm doing a presentation, not a keynote like this, but if I'm doing a presentation, I'm going to have a QR code on the screen. I'm giving away a free gift in exchange for your email, your phone number, your first and last name. But if I'm doing a keynote and I'm speaking to conference organizers and they say, do you have a card? Honestly, I don't have a card. Again, I probably should. But I'm like, actually, can I take your information? Because I've just noticed that, you know, in order to get the ball rolling, my team is really good at reaching out and staying in touch. And most of the times, yeah, I'll get their information if they have a card, or if not, I'll just take their phone number, email, and name and get that over to my booking manager, and they'll work on it. Because I'd rather have your contact where I can control the outreach and follow up the very next day within 24 hours about, you know, getting rebooked or referred to somebody else. Because yeah, just handing out a card and hoping for them to call you, just in my experience, hasn't worked. So, well, I'm not gonna say it hasn't worked. It does. The conversion rate is low. Conversion rate is a lot higher when I reach out to you. So that being said, always make sure that you know what the protocol is, because in this exact situation where you're watching, it was his conference and he was doing an enrollment event, meaning like he was getting people to come into his program. So it wouldn't have made sense for me to pitch my coaching program when he is pitching a similar offer, right? So it wouldn't make sense for me to take away from the room. That's disrespectful for me to take away from the room that he is pitching to. So in that case, I did not get any customer information because it was all pointed at making sure that the conference organizer got left no meat on the bone. Everybody came here to support him, and that's what it's all about. Okay. So that being said, that is the way that you tell stories in such a way that your audience is hooked from beginning to end, and they'll never forget the things that you say. Okay. I hope that was highly impactful. I hope that it worked out for you. I had a lot of fun doing it. If you want to see more like this, let me know in the comments down below that you would like to see a video breakdown like this again in the future. If so, I got you. All right. I'm Darrell Williams Jr., and I'll see you on the next one.